So are you ready to PR yourself? We'll remove the mystery from all things PR, and we'll discuss everything from our top strategies to tips and tricks and everything that you can utilize to further enhance your brand or your message. I've been in media, I'm a journalist, and I'm also a publicist. I am Leah Frazier, CEO of Think3 Media, and your host for PR Yourself with Leah Frazier. Let's go.
And welcome back to another episode of PR Yourself with Leah Frazier. I am your host, Leah Frazier, CEO of Think3 Media based out of Dallas, Texas. And I'm so happy that you are back joining me for yet another power-packed episode. And so this one is a special episode. I would like to think of it as a bonus episode because it is more motivational than anything. I have been extremely blessed over the years as I kind of toggle the line between public relations with my agency, but I also have journalist and media credentials because I still write for numerous publications, specifically in Dallas. There's one national publication that I contribute to. I do quite a bit of TV and radio, and I consider myself to be a liaison as well to those outlets through my PR agency. So it's just a wealth of just being a multi-hyphenate media personality, I guess. And so writing is my first love. If I don't write, if I don't create, I often find myself just being a little bit down because it's my outlet. I create beautiful things with words. And that's what I enjoy. It's what I enjoy doing. I've always loved interviewing people and bringing the best out of whatever the situation is with their story or the things that they're saying and piecing it all together, maybe in a way that they hadn't considered, in a way that's digestible for the reader. So that is what I absolutely love to do. And I've kind of kicked it up a notch here in Dallas because I just love writing so much. And so I'm saying all that because I was tapped on the shoulders from the team over at Good Soil. So Good Soil is an entrepreneurial conference that is held here in Dallas. And they bring in kind of the best of the best for the community to come and talk about fundraising. They do pitch competitions. They give money away. They have motivational and keynote speakers. And it is just an amazing conference. The energy is indescribable. It's put on by the Potter's House and TD Jakes' foundation here in Dallas. And it is, honestly, I'm so glad that I took the time to do some coverage for this conference. And so the reason I'm telling you that is because today you're going to hear two different segments. So the first segment is going to be more motivational. The first night of the conference was a intimate conversation between Bishop T.D. Jakes, or Chairman T.D. Jakes, and Oprah. And when I got wind that Oprah was coming, I was like, I have to be in the building. I have never seen Oprah speak in person. I just love this woman. I've loved what she's built as a woman. I love the empire that she's built for her brand. And I need to be in the building just to be in her presence and see and sense for myself just who she is as a human being. And so got my media badge, did some, was doing coverage and was going through my clips because I'm going to rewrite the experience and recap the conference, and came across a clip that I'm going to play for you here in a little bit that hopefully can motivate you. And it talks about where she began on her journey and how just being authentic to herself and believing in God. And I will say this, if you're listening and you have a different faith, then translate it to your faith or the creator, the universe, or whatever it is that you believe in. Okay. But the context of what Oprah is saying is what is the most important. And it is, I just love being able to hear and be around that energy in person. It was just contagious. So I hope that you enjoy this clip that I have coming up next. And then after the break, you're going to want to stay around for after the break, because initially my first interview was with Pinky Cole. If you know Pinky Cole, you know that she is the founder of the Slutty Vegan franchises, or the founder of Slutty Vegan. It is a vegan burger and fry restaurant that originally began in Atlanta and then rapidly expanded to numerous cities. Pinky is a serial entrepreneur. She is an amazing, when we talk about Black women in entrepreneurship, she's one of the tops. She's graced the magazine covers of so many incredible magazines, especially those in business, some that I've been reading forever. And I was granted the opportunity to interview her as she was coming to Dallas to host Good Soil. So she was hosting the conference. And this comes recently after some news of Pinky actually losing ownership of her Slutty Vegan restaurant. All we knew as the public was that she's very active on social media. She's always giving. She's just a very generous person. She's giving of her time. She's giving of her resources. She gives through her foundation. And she also just gives back in a way that pours back into those that are small business owners and entrepreneurs. So if you're not following her, definitely go follow her, because she's always been an inspiration. Met her a couple of years in Dallas when I knew she was coming to Dallas, reached out to her team and was like, what can we do to get her on Good Morning Texas? Because she is a star. And I knew she was a big deal. The folks over at the station, I'm not sure that they knew exactly who she was, but when I call them and I say, this person is a big deal, they're coming to town, they need to be on the show, 9 times out of 10, they listen to me. So they booked Pinky, and then I worked with her team and met Pinky at the news station. At that time, she was promoting her cookbook, and she was just, again, she was about her business, but it was a great segment. They actually brought her back a second time to do a longer segment on her story and how she says yes to herself, how she takes care of herself. So Dallas loves them some Pinky Cole, baby. So in reaching back out to her, I was like, hey, I've worked with Pinky on a couple of stories. I would love to interview her. She's coming back to do the Good Soil conference. And I know it's at the cusp of all of this press that she's getting around losing her restaurant and then buying it back within, I think, 45 or so days. And I would love to speak to her about that and how she's going to pour into these entrepreneurs at this conference. So they said yes. And I wrote the story. It's in print for Southern Dallas Magazine, and it's online. So I will link the story as well. But because you guys are very special PR Yourself with Leah Frazier listeners, you guys get the raw interview to listen to. So if you don't have time, if you're not in Dallas and you can't pick up a physical copy, and if you don't want to click on that link and read online, I got a treat for you. So after we come back from the break, you're going to hear from Oprah here in just a second. There'll be a break. And then after that break, you're going to get the raw interview between me and Pinky as I'm interviewing her for Southern Dallas Magazine. Funny thing is, it was supposed to be a video interview and Pinky was running around like crazy, as most entrepreneurs do. And she was in her car. And so, when you get into this game, you just kind of take it however you can get it. And I was like, I'm on the phone with Pinky Cole. I really don't care. So I hope you guys enjoy the interview. And from both contexts, from Oprah's interview, or from what you're going to hear from Oprah, and from what you hear from Pinky Cole, there is an underlying theme of authenticity for why Oprah's as successful as she is, down to her beliefs. And then once you listen to Pinky Cole, about her just being true to herself and then PRing herself in a way to be true to her audience and her fans as to what was really happening in her business. But remember, timing is everything. Because when something like, traumatic happens, as it happened to Pinky in her business, it wouldn't have been appropriate for her to tell us she lost everything in the moment that it was happening. She waited till she got to the other side and then revealed that transparency. And so sometimes in this, we have an episode, if you want to go back, with Cynthia Nevels that talks about really just putting too much out there on social media. You have to be strategic in how you use social media to tell your story. And so when you listen to Pinky Cole, that's what I want you to hone in on, is the timing, the authenticity, how she tells her truth, even if it's ugly. But in doing so, it actually helped to propel her business and her brand in a totally different way. And that she propelled and used that press that she was getting and telling her truth about, hey, I lost my business, I got it back. She used that momentum to leverage and launch a whole new restaurant called Vogies, which is vegan hoagies, which are sandwiches if anybody's listening. And so that's what I really want you to hone in on, is just how brilliant this woman is, even in a situation where it was ugly and it put her into a depression. But telling her truth leveraged her and PR'd her brand in a way that is probably, and she spun that story in a way to where it's more positive, and it just gave her more gold stars for her brand on both the personal side and the business side. So I want you to take a listen. I hope you're inspired. And once we get back from the break, you will hear from none other than Miss Oprah Winfrey.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Listen, if you could go back to Mississippi and talk to that little girl out in that front yard, what would you tell her?
What would I tell her? I would first and foremost know how loved she is, because I grew up not feeling a lot of love from the people around me. And I would tell her, you know, my grandmother did the best she could, but I had one of those strict disciplinarian grandmothers. And I say, as Tyler often says, you know, she didn't give me much, but she did give me Jesus. She had the ability to give me Jesus. And so I would say to that girl, and I'd say to anybody here, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And I would say, you know, my favorite song is I Surrender All. And I learned that, you know, when I was trying to get into The Color Purple and didn't think it was going to happen, and started singing that song, and suddenly the woman appeared and said, Steven Spielberg is on the phone. And so I have lived a surrendered life. And I would say, understanding, as I believe, you know, I've said this for many years, that you don't get what you want. You actually get what you believe. And so if you're not where you want, you need to look at what you believe. And so, because I truly believed when I was told that I was God's child, and for many years when people would ask me about it, I would say, you know, Jesus is my brother because I'm God's daughter. And kids would want to beat me up because here come that preacher girl, talk about Jesus again. And so I would tell that little girl to hold on to God's unchanging hand. That's what I would tell her. Hold on to God's unchanging hand. Because it has been the source of all things for me. And can I tell this story? Can I tell the story? I want to tell this story. Some of you may have heard me tell the story, but this is actually how I know how God works. So when I was in Baltimore, and I was started out in Baltimore making $22,000 a year. By the time I finished, I was making $57,000. So I thought that was it. When I went to Chicago and they offered me $250,000 a year, Gil said, "That's it! You never have to work again. Do it." So I've come up the ranks. I've had every single salary from the time I was 16 years old and first started working at the radio station, made $100 a week, and then I went from $100 a week, and then I made $10,000 a year, $12,000, $15,000, all the way up the ranks. And when I was in Baltimore, there was a woman who was a producer of this show I was doing called People Are Talking, and wealthy Jewish woman who still remains a friend. Arlene Weiner is her name, and her husband Arnold, very famous attorney in Baltimore. And so I went to visit Arlene at her house, and Arlene had, there were like 3 cars in the driveway, and I was like, whoa, there's a Jaguar, and there's a Mercedes, and then there was like a Stingray for their son. I was like, Arlene is rich. And I walked into Arlene's house, and they had all the things, and I remember standing in the kitchen looking out Arlene Weiner's window, and I could see in the front yard these 6 trees, and I went, oh, rich people have trees. If I ever get enough money to buy myself a house, I'm gonna have me 6 trees. And I was at my house in Santa Barbara. A couple of years after I moved into the house, I was standing in the kitchen looking out the window. And I was standing there waiting on the tea to brew, and I looked out, and I saw the 6 trees. And I went, there's the 6 trees. There's the 6 trees. I walked out into the front of the yard, y'all. I wish I had a picture of my front yard. And beyond the 6 trees were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trees. The bishop can tell you, I live with some trees. I am surrounded by trees, and the trees have trees. The trees have little tree babies. And in that moment, I thought, wow, I had the dream for the 6, but Jesus had a bigger dream for me. Woo! That good soil. You ask God, what do you want me to do with this good soil? And one day you're going to look up and you are standing in a forest. You're standing in a forest. Whatever it is, you give it to Him. You offer it in surrender. Surrender it all. And it will come back to you 1,000-fold. Tell you that is true because I am living God's dream for me. Thank you, Dallas.
Did you know that podcasts are a great way to grow your personal and business brand voice? Listen, here's a secret. We all want to feel connected to brands we buy from. So what better way to humanize a brand than through sharing your story on a podcast? Think about it now. You in bright lights and on PR Yourself with Leah Frazier. Hey, it can happen. Listen, Kitcaster is a podcast booking agency. They're one of the friends of the show that specializes in developing real human connections through podcast appearances. So if you're an expert in your field, you have a unique story to share, or you have an interesting point of view, it is time for you to explore the world of podcasting with Kitcaster. You can expect a completely customized concierge service from their staff of communication experts. Kitcaster is your secret weapon in podcasting for business. Listen, your audience is waiting to hear from you. Don't make them wait too much longer. So what you're going to do, you're going to head to kitcaster.com. That is KITCASTER.com. caster.com/PR yourself to apply for a special offer for friends of this podcast. And listen, don't delay. Get with it today. A lot of your amazing guests that you guys love so much on this podcast came from Kitcaster. Don't delay. Next time it needs to be you. All right, Pinky, we're so excited to have you back in Dallas for the Good Soil Forum. And you've had quite a bit of news, good, the bad, the wins, everything going on with you. And also just saw this morning that one of your husband's restaurants ranked highly, like top 10 on like one of the top food sites, or it was amazing. I screenshotted it. But yeah, with all of these wins and just everything that you have going on lately, why was it so important for you to come back to Dallas for Good Soil?
You know, as entrepreneurs, I have learned so much. I like to say that I got a PhD in entrepreneurship because I had 1,000 wins. I had about 500 losses. But the commonality between all of that is that I learned along the way. And what I love about being around entrepreneurs is that it's not so much about the wins. It's more about what happens within the journey. And I'm on such a beautiful roller coaster ride of a journey where I learned so much. Even now, I'm still learning. So to be able to come to the Good Soul Forum, not just as a consumer, not just as a sponge, not just as somebody who will also be receiving knowledge and wisdom and education, I get to host that thing. And I get to be a testament of what it looks like when you don't give up, what it looks like when you get the wins, and sometimes you get the hiccups, but you learn from them along the way. And I want the people who are attending this fabulous program to see that, to see the transparency, the vulnerability, the realness of entrepreneurship. And I think that is what will be consumed at the Good Soul Forum.
Yeah, and I think that just from me knowing about your journey and also having read your book, I Hope You Fail, and the transparency that's in that book as well, you've always told, whether it's viewers or fans or other entrepreneurs, the losses. And some people complain that sometimes in the startup world and entrepreneurship, we only see the highlight reel. So why has it always been important for you to be so vulnerable and share everything, even if it doesn't feel or look as good?
That's a really good question. All of my life, I've always been like that. I have always been super confident in who I am. And I think because I'm so confident in who I am not moved by the opinions of other people. So however I show up is my most authentic self, whether you like me or not. And I am not looking for applause from other people. So it's easy for me to tell the truth, right? And I think that you get farther in life when you are real and honest. You know, they got this saying, real recognize real. So that's the only way that I can be. And the people who truly know me know that's how I am. I'm always honest. I'm always fair. I don't tell a lie. And I'm just transparent with who I am, because you never know how many people are watching me and being blessed from the mistakes that I made, right? Saying like, okay, well, Pinky did that. I don't need to do that again. Or, well, Pinky was the first to do that. Now I need to follow in those footsteps. So transparency is my best policy, because it has allowed me to elevate and rise in my career, because they've never seen somebody so real as me at the level that I've made it to in business, especially as a restaurateur.
I agree, because when I, recently with the news, when we were all reading about, you buying back the restaurant and everything like that, I was like, man, I wonder if she was nervous to share that, or there was just so much emotion behind it as well. And I watched your interview with Nene Leakes as well, and I'm just like, man, she's just keeping it A100. And I just wondered if you were nervous when it was time to let people know what was happening, or were you like, screw it, here we go?
Yeah, it was like, sure, here we go. Especially because as a CEO of my company, a lot of what happened in my business, I didn't directly cause. But because I'm the CEO and founder of my company, I got to eat it. And I was prepared to do that. And I knew that I was going to have to stand in front of the cross from other people's mistakes, but that's okay, right? That's the ebbs and flows of business. One day I'll be able to tell my story in a way where people truly understand, like, oh, I get it now. And that's a part of what we'll talk about at the Good Soul Forum, right? Like, I'm a true professional, and being a true professional, sometimes as the CEO, you're going to get the applause and you're going to get the boos. You got to be okay with that. You got to prepare yourself for that. And everybody ain't able, right? Because I've always trained myself for this. Even since I was younger, I'm prepared for whatever comes my way. It's hard sometimes, but I don't even lie. But I'm prepared for whatever comes my way.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if I would be cut out for that, because it's not like, I only have my little measly followers. You have millions of people that follow you all over the world. So to be able to have that conversation, and even still, I think in a place like Good Soil, where there's entrepreneurs at all different levels, you being able to help them navigate, whether it's through whether or not they should have investors, or what quite possibly, I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand VC funding and what that looks like. And I'm wondering if you'll be there and able to provide advice on all of those avenues as well, because you have raised so much money and you know what that looks like.
Absolutely. This VC world is a whole nother ball game, right? To be honest, it's like, that's a bad example, but it is. I was about to say something else, I forgot. But it's a whole nother ball game, and if you're not safe, you'll drown in this game. And I almost drowned in this game because there was a lot of things that I did not know, and I've learned a lot along the way. And even with the relationships that I've built and relationships that were broken, I have learned how to be an entrepreneur based on my experiences. So we will absolutely talk about those things in this whole form, what to look for, how to understand that when you get money from investors, you are entering into a marriage. And when you get married, you got to know what comes with that marriage. It ain't always going to be pretty and titles and accomplishments. Sometimes it's going to get ugly and stagnant. And you got to get comfortable with that. You got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So we'll talk about that as well at Good Soul Forum.
And I really hope, I hope there's a bookstore there so that your book is there, because you talk about a lot of this in the book. I Hope You Fail as well. And one of my favorite chapters in that book was you discussing this very same situation. Like, look, when it gets sticky, you have to be ready to pivot. And recently, you just launched Vogies, which is vegan hoagies. And there was a lot of buzz around that. So what can you tell us about this new venture?
So Vegan Hoagies is a vegan sandwich shop that sells all different types of lunch meats, vegetables, fresh vegetables that are sliced daily. And I've been sitting on this concept for like 6 years. I'm like, all right, this is one of them ones, right? So, you got Slutty Vegan, and we call people sluts when you walk through the door, and it's a novelty brand. But then you got that everyday brand, and that's Vogies. And that's the brand that families can come and eat it every day. If you want to get something really good to eat, you can come and eat this every day, and it doesn't feel like a novelty. And I knew that there was a gap in the market for that, and I wanted to create something that people can get excited about. So I'm excited that people love the brand. It's already doing numbers already. It's already super successful. And I can't wait for people to see Vogies also scale, because that is a brand that's separate and aside from, Slutty Vegan, and that brand will scale and also be successful.
Yeah, I was like, selfishly, I'm like, when is Dallas coming? Just give us a heads up.
Yeah, I'm coming back in Dallas. I'll be back in Dallas soon. Dallas is a great market. I love Dallas, and our location in Dallas is doing extremely well. We just didn't have the bandwidth. We didn't have the right leadership in Dallas. So we're coming back. We'll be back soon.
And of course, for Good Soil, just as we wrap up, Pinky, just tell me, like, outside of you obviously being there for the entrepreneurs, and like I said, out of all the Black entrepreneurs that I know, you're the one, in my opinion, the most visible, the most invested in the community. You have your foundation. But for yourself, coming to Good Soil with all the different speakers, we got Oprah and you got Wall Street Trapper and everybody. Is there anything else about Good Soil that excites you about the forum?
A lot of times there are tons of people who have conferences and forums and like they tell you what you need to do and this is how you do it, but it's coming from people who have no experience. I don't know if you ever been to an event where like people can try to give you a blueprint, but they ain't even go through it themselves.
The
and, like,
brunches. Let me tell you how to make six figures. Have you made
exactly? And you ain't even make it yourself. The difference between those and this is you have people who have been denied. You have people who have been who have failed, who have had the door closed on them, but that sparked a bounce back out of this world. So the people that will be at Good Soul Forum are not just educators and orators. These are people who have experience and can speak from their experience so that you can either do the same thing or don't do the same thing, follow the same path or don't follow the same path. And it's real and it's not a money grab. This is really a melting pot of entrepreneurs from everywhere to be able to learn best practices on how to be not just a good entrepreneur, but how to be the best internally, mentally, spiritually, financially, and emotionally, which is the most important part. Because guess what? If your mental cup is empty, there's no way that you could be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, I agree. And just for you, I know I said I was going to go, but you just tapping into that and me thinking about all the pressure and everything that you've been through recently. How did you keep your mental solid? Like what is there things that you do or advice you can give to entrepreneurs where when they're feeling like they're at their lowest to push through, especially mental health wise?
At my lowest in entrepreneurship, I met God. So sometimes the lowest may appear to be bad, but that might just be the portal to get you closer to your higher power. And once you lock in with your higher power, there's nothing that you can't accomplish.
I love that, Pinky. Thank you so much.
Thank
I appreciate your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. And I've heard you so many times. I just know everybody's about to be blessed. But thank you for coming back to Dallas and for your time this morning, and I really appreciate it. And there you have it. Two powerhouse women, Oprah Winfrey, Pinky Cole, coming straight to you with just raw and authentic interviews. I hope this inspired you today. I hope that you will continue to listen in. I hope that there were nuggets that you could take away to help your business. So thank you so much for tuning in. I know this was a shorter episode than most, but it was packed. And so if you have any episode ideas, you know what to do. You can hit me up on Instagram at PR Yourself Podcast or my personal Instagram at THE Leah LEAH Frazier FRAZIER on Instagram and all other channels. And let me know what you want to hear from me. On our next episode, we will be discussing those pesky influencers again, but this time I'm bringing in the experts to talk about what's the truth about influencer marketing in 2025 and how can a small business owner like yourself build a better relationship with influencers? What are they expecting? What are we getting wrong? And how do they need to come at us for brand deals? And so we're discussing that with the experts, two of my favorite, Zach Wilson with Elite Talent Advisors and Cynthia Smoot with Gangway Advertising, who is also an influencer herself and a publicist. So the best of both worlds. So you're going to want to tune in. If you love this episode, you know what you're going to do. You're going to like, you're going to comment, you're going to share, and also rate the podcast. When you're liking, commenting, sharing, and rating the podcast, it helps us to shoot up the ranks. It helps us to get even better guests to come on the show, who want to come on the show, who want to pour into you. So please, please, please just take 5 seconds if this blessed you or blessed someone else and like, comment, share, rate, review. And you guys know how it is. You stick around, stay tuned, and until next time.